you should do a briefing. So please.
There's two microphones.
Day 29 of the Republican shutdown. It was right back.
I can't stop.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is day 29 of the Trump Republican shutdown, and Republicans have continued to show zero interest in reopening the government, enacting a bipartisan agreement that meets the needs of the American people, and addressing the Republican health care crisis. In just a few days on November 1st, open enrollment will begin, and tens of millions of Americans are going to more completely understand that their premiums, copays, and deductibles are going to skyrocket by thousands of dollars per year because of Republicans' continued refusal to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits for working class Americans. At the same period of time, on November 1st, about 42 million Americans who rely on SNAP in order to put food on the table are at risk of losing their benefits because Donald Trump and Republicans want to cruelly rip them away. Let's be clear. The administration has the funding to make sure that not a single American on November 1st or beyond goes hungry. Not a single American. They have the money, but they are choosing to withhold funding for SNAP because they want to punish hungry children, hungry veterans, hungry seniors, hungry women, and hungry families as part of their continued effort to hurt everyday Americans. This is what we've seen from Donald Trump and Republicans from the very beginning of this Congress. The Republican One Big Ugly Bill included the largest cut to Medicaid in American history. It also included the largest cut to nutritional assistance in American history. Republicans cut $186 billion from SNAP in July, which is why we're facing this crisis right now. And they did all of this back in July. Why? So they could provide massive tax breaks to their billionaire donors. That's what Republicans have done during this presidency. And now, because of their continued refusal to even sit down and have a conversation with Democrats, despite us repeatedly making clear that we will sit down with Republicans anytime, any place, anywhere, here at the Capitol or back at the White House to have a serious conversation about reopening the government, supporting our hardworking federal employees, and addressing the health care crisis that Republicans have created, the affordability crisis that Republicans have created, and now the hunger crisis that Republicans are creating by threatening to withhold SNAP benefits, even though the Trump administration has the money to make sure that not a single American goes hungry. Questions?
Mr. Leader, good afternoon. As somebody who flies and travels the country often, are you fearful of flying with air traffic control issues and safety issues?
Well, I'm very thankful for our hardworking air traffic controllers and our TSA agents and everyone who has been working hard without pay for a month because Donald Trump and Republicans decided to shut the government down. And we need to do everything possible to reopen the government. We can start by Republicans in the House ending their 5-week vacation and getting back to work. Like, it's extraordinary that Republicans have been on vacation for 5 weeks, canceled votes 5 consecutive weeks. They're getting paid to go camping and hiking and travel to Europe. This is what House Republicans are doing, documented over the last 5 weeks. They're getting paid, and yet they're forcing federal employees to be furloughed without pay or to work. And it has to end. Like, Donald Trump needs to get serious, give permission to Mike Johnson and John Thune to sit down and negotiate with Democrats. That's all it takes.
The personal concern about your own safety when you travel, somebody who's
I
on
am
a
very
plane alone.
confident in the ability of hard-working air traffic controllers, TSA agents, and others who are continuing to do their jobs with the highest degree of professionalism. Thank you.
Have there been any early conversations with the White House this week about setting anything up with the president after he gets back from Asia? Something next week with you guys?
There haven't been any conversations from the White House. Leader Schumer and I made clear last week we wanted to meet with the president before he jetted off to Asia. And he's found time in Asia to meet with a wide variety of folks pretending to fix problems related to the tariffs that he has created. And he'll be back in the next day or so. He needs to sit down with Democrats. Like for 29 days, understand, Donald Trump has spent more time talking to Hamas and the Chinese Communist Party than he has in talking to Democrats on Capitol Hill to end the Trump shutdown, reopen the government, find a bipartisan path toward a spending agreement that actually meets the needs of the American people, and address the healthcare crisis that Republicans have created. That's an unacceptable thing to the overwhelming majority of Americans, that this American president, in the middle of a shutdown that he's created, while refusing to address the Republican healthcare crisis, can find the time to talk to Hamas and the Chinese Communist Party, but can't talk to people who represent half the country, including many Republicans in our districts who are being hurt by Republican policies. Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Leader. Speaker Johnson this morning said that he's given up on leadership, referring to Leader Schumer and yourself. Called you both irredeemable. He said some things about Mamdani being the face of the Democratic Party. What's your reaction to that? Have you spoken to Speaker Johnson, in response to the death threats of last week or about the shutdown any time in the recent days?
I spoke to him briefly this week, but he had nothing to say about the death threats. And, you know, that's irredeemable. I don't expect to hear anything from Republicans because they've created this situation. Donald Trump pardoned hundreds of violent felons who brutally assaulted police officers, more than 140 or so who were seriously injured, and then released them back into communities across the country. And Mike Johnson and House Republicans and Senate Republicans, they all support that irresponsible act, that un-American act by Donald Trump. So they're irredeemable on a whole host of issues. They certainly are irredeemable, these Republican extremists, when it comes to actually standing up for the American people. Donald Trump and Republicans promised, their core promise last year was to lower the high cost of living on day one. That's what Republicans said. That's what they communicated to the American people. And we know that Republicans lied, stone cold liars, to the American people when they promised to focus on addressing the high cost of living. Costs are not going down in America, they are going up. Housing costs are up, grocery costs are up, electricity prices are through the roof, child care costs are up, and now because of Republican refusal to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, we know that premiums, copays, and deductibles for the overwhelming majority of Americans, including but not limited to more than 20 million Americans who receive their Affordable Care Act tax credits, are about to explode. Republicans have done this, and they now refuse to even sit down and address the health care crisis that they have visited on the American people.
The conversation was related to the shutdown that you had.
It was a brief conversation. I reiterated our position as it relates to a willingness to sit down to find a bipartisan path forward, that we were going to continue to support our hardworking federal employees who they've been victimizing since January 20th, that we need to reopen the government, and we need to do it now, but we also need to address the Republican health care crisis. Our position as Democrats has been clear. We're not going to support a partisan Republican spending bill that continues to gut the health care of the American people. And by the way, we're not going to allow them to pretend as if they support nutritional assistance to the American people. They just cut $186 billion from SNAP, literally 2 or 3 months ago, in their one big ugly bill. Largest cut to SNAP in American history. The extremists on the other side of the aisle are irredeemable. That's why they're getting ready to go down in flames politically in California, in New Jersey, and in Virginia next Tuesday.
Obviously, you and Leader Schumer have been on the same page when it comes to this government shutdown issue, but you are not on the same page when it comes to endorsing the Democratic nominee, Zohran Mamdani, for mayor in New York. Does this show a rift in the Democratic Party that the two Democratic leaders here in Congress are not in agreement on endorsing the Democratic nominee in New York?
No.
We're talking about now potentially more than 40 million people that are not going to get their SNAP benefits, and thousands of federal workers who are going to miss their second paycheck now. At some point, does the pain from the shutdown, at the very least, match pain from people having to pay higher premiums if these subsidies are not there?
We want to reopen the government and do it immediately. And Donald Trump needs to instruct his employees here in the Capitol, that would be Mike Johnson and John Thune. They work for Donald Trump. They don't work for the American people. In fact, Donald Trump is the one who recently said, "I'm the president and the Speaker of the House." This is extraordinary stuff. Like, Donald Trump is openly mocking Republican leaders. We can find a path forward, but it's not going to come from Republicans in the House and the Senate at the leadership level. It's got to come from the Trump administration saying the American people have had enough of this Republican shutdown, have had enough of the refusal to deal with the health care crisis. As Marjorie Taylor Greene has indicated, this is a Republican health care crisis, and they refuse to do anything about it. She can't find their health care plan. We can't find their health care plan because it doesn't exist. So all of this pain that's being visited upon the American people by Donald Trump and Republican policies needs to end. And we're saying we remain ready, willing, and able to find that bipartisan path forward to ending it and addressing the needs of the American people. Very early on, like when we came back to Congress after the August district work period, Democrats in the House and the Senate, we were very clear. We want to enact a spending agreement that's bipartisan, but it has to meet the needs of the American people in terms of their health, public safety, and economic well-being, particularly as it relates to driving down the high cost of living. That shouldn't be too difficult to find common ground on if Republicans were actually serious, but they're not. And that's what we've seen from Republicans over the last 29 days. Thanks. You got it.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. Some of your Democratic colleagues have said that they will be deferring their paychecks during the shutdown as federal employees, congressional staff, Capitol Police go without pay. As October comes to a close, what have you decided to do with your paycheck this month?
I'll have more to say about that shortly, but this is an issue that I expect we'll discuss at the WIP meeting tomorrow. Thanks. You got it.
You had a big setback this morning in Maryland, redistricting. How do you plan to overcome opposition from the state Senate president?
So Governor Moore has been very clear that Maryland is prepared to respond, as we've seen in multiple other states across the country in just the last few days, to the Trump Republican effort to rig the midterm elections. And it's my expectation, based on my conversations with Governor Moore, my conversations with leadership in the Maryland General Assembly, and my conversations certainly with the Maryland congressional delegation, that the state of Maryland knows what the stakes are, understands the assignment, and as we are seeing in multiple other states, beginning with California, will respond aggressively and appropriately in short order.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. Senator Fetterman has been critical of Dems' opposition to the CR. We're starting to see some cracks in your conference, too, where Josh Gottenheimer has said that he thinks the deal that Leader Thune has put on the table, which is a vote on an extension of the Affordable Care Act tax credits, is a fair deal if you reopen the government. Do you think this shows that there are more cracks on your side than there are on their side?
Let me explain something to you. There are zero cracks on the Democratic side. We are now 5 or 6 weeks into this, and we've been very clear from the beginning that we are going to stand up to lower the high cost of living for everyday Americans. That's the right fight. That we're going to stand up for our hard-working civil servants, our men and women in uniform. That's the right fight. And that we're going to decisively address the Republican health care crisis. And everybody on the Democratic side, certainly in the House, and our colleagues in the Senate have been tremendous on this. This is a very real thing, this Republican health care crisis that Republicans have visited on the American people. Largest cut to Medicaid in American history. Almost $1 trillion cut as part of their one big ugly bill. Because of Republican policies, hospitals, nursing homes, and community-based health centers are closing all across the country, including in Louisiana. The country now faces the possibility of a $536 billion cut to Medicare, which will be the largest cut to Medicare in American history if Congress doesn't act by the end of this year because of what Republicans did in their one big ugly bill. And as a result of the Republican refusal to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, tens of millions of Americans are about to experience health care premium increases that could equate to $1,000 or $2,000 per month, when more than 90% of the people who receive Affordable Care Act tax credits make around $63,000 per year. This is unsustainable. And this is a Republican health care crisis. And every single Democrat, certainly in the House, from Representative Ocasio-Cortez to Representative Josh Gottheimer, and all points in between along the ideological spectrum, are in this fight until we win this fight. And I'm in touch with everyone. And that's why we're here right now in the Capitol while Republicans remain on their 5-week vacation.
When it comes to the healthcare debate, which you all have put center to this shutdown fight, looking a year out, provided, regardless of what the off-ramp is here on the shutdown, if there ever is one, by having healthcare front and center, how are you betting that plays into the midterms?
Well, we've made clear as Democrats that as we move forward in terms of our public policy agenda, that the American people deserve much better than what they've gotten from this administration, which has been an unprecedented assault on the economy, on health care, on nutritional assistance, on veterans, on farmers, on law-abiding immigrant families, on nutritional assistance, on the rule of law, and of course on the American way of life. And that we're going to focus as Democrats on lowering the high cost of living, fixing our broken health care system, and cleaning up corruption. Because we're experiencing corruption in real time here in America. Donald Trump and his administration make Richard Nixon look like a choir boy. That's the level of corruption that we've seen. And it hurts the American people because Donald Trump is more focused on rewarding his friends on Wall Street by doing things like finding $40 billion to bail out Argentina, and he can't find a dime to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, or is withholding billions of dollars in SNAP assistance that the administration has because it's been allocated by Congress in order to cause children in America to go hungry. That's Republican policy.
But if I can just follow up, just one more fine point on it. Healthcare is a fight that you are happy to have heading into the midterms.
This is not political for us. This is about making life better for the American people. And it certainly is the case that in working to make that happen, we've got to fix our broken healthcare system and decisively address the Republican healthcare crisis. Question on SNAP?
So if the Senate somehow did pass the Hawley bill to fund SNAP, would you, as Democrats, support that as a came
Leader Thune has expressed opposition apparently to the Hawley bill, so it doesn't seem like anything is going to happen there because Republicans clearly want to weaponize hunger, and that's unfortunate. The best path forward is for Donald Trump to instruct his administration to spend the money that has already been allocated by Congress, more than $5 billion that they have in an emergency contingency fund for moments like this, to ensure that there's continuity in terms of SNAP benefits. And as has been the case for weeks now, the American people will continue to hold Republicans accountable for the shutdown, for the refusal to reopen the government, for the failure to address the healthcare crisis that extremist Republicans have created, and now for the possibility that 42 million Americans, including 16 million children, 8 million seniors, and over 1 million veterans may go hungry because the Trump administration wants to cut off SNAP benefits on November 1st.
Thank you. If Democrats are successful in Virginia and New Jersey, will you take that as a sign to keep up the fight and not reopen the government, or that your demands on healthcare be met? And then separately, how many briefings total have you received on the U.S. military strikes in Venezuela? And have you seen sufficient evidence that those were drug votes that they established?
There's been zero evidence presented to me, and I believe that has been presented to the Gang of Eight and certainly to the Congress to justify the strikes that have taken place based on what has been presented to us by the administration. It's my understanding that there is going to be a briefing tomorrow that I think will be hosted by the Armed Services Committee, and we'll see whether the administration can finally come forward with evidence as to the nature of the people who are being killed, their connection to the drug trade, and what legal authority does the administration have to engage in what some have characterized as extrajudicial killings. In terms of what may happen next Tuesday, that's on the non-governmental side. And our commitment to the American people from the very beginning of this shutdown drama that Donald Trump and Republicans have jammed down the throats of everyday Americans in ways that are causing significant pain is that we will find a bipartisan path forward to enact a spending agreement that actually makes sense for the American people, but at the same time addresses real needs of everyday Americans, working class Americans, and middle class Americans. That's who we're fighting for. Not the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected. We leave that to the Republicans. They do that well. We're fighting for everyday Americans, which includes addressing the healthcare crisis that is jamming them up. Now, what happens in Virginia and New Jersey and California, where I'm very confident that we will be successful, doesn't have anything to do, in my view, with the outcome in reopening the government. First of all, we need House Republicans to just show up for work. Are they coming back to Washington next Monday? It remains to be seen. And we need them to just simply commit to engaging with Democrats on Capitol Hill. Like, just give us a little bit of time. You've given Hamas time. Donald Trump has found time to give to the Chinese Communist Party, but can't spend a minute to reopen the government for the American people. Well, at the same time, we've seen Donald Trump bulldoze half the White House so he can create a ballroom where he will be celebrated by his sycophants like a king. This is extraordinary stuff. The American people know the Trump administration has gone too far. They are rejecting his policies, rejecting Republican policies. Republicans have broken every promise that they made on the campaign trail. Life isn't getting better. It's getting worse. The majority of the American people have consistently now said that the country is moving in the wrong direction. And as Democrats, we're committed to getting things back on track. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.